Hello friends, welcome to another video. Today I came with the worst events and tortures that happened to Jewish women during World War II and caused the death of thousands of innocent people. Stay with me until the end of the video. On July 14th, 1946, 200,000 ordinary people flocked to the top of the Gorka Piskopia pillars to witness the execution of soldiers and former guards of the Stotthof concentration camp. The place where the most notorious guards, who played a major role in punishing and torturing the prisoners of this camp, were to be punished for their actions, especially some of the oppressive women who obeyed the command of the SS group, who had taken the lives of many Jewish women in unbelievable ways. After a large criminal trial, the criminals were sentenced to death for the crime of violence and abuse of women prisoners in Stutthof camp, murder, rape, and using them as sex slaves. In this episode of our channel, we are going to examine the way of life and behavioral violence of some of the most notorious women in the history of mankind, who are in charge of the women's section of the Stotthof concentration camp, and witness their execution. After the start of World War II, many camps were set up to kill and kill Jews, one of the most notorious of which was the Stotthof concentration camp, which was established immediately after the war. In the year 1944, after the Esho AIDS camp no longer had the capacity to hold and execute prisoners, it was decided to send a large population of Jews to the Stotthof camp. This sudden increase in the population in this camp made the camp manager think about training more guards, especially women. Among these newly arrived guards was a young woman named Eva Paradise, who, after finishing her training at Stotthof, became known as one of the most brutal and insane guards in the persecution of the Jews. Eva Paradise was born in the year 1920, and after spending a short period as an intern at Stotthof camp, she became the main supervisor of the women's section of the camp, and after a short time became one of the most notorious officers of this camp among the prisoners. Eva used various methods to torture Jewish women, for example using whips and iron batons to beat women who were small because she believed they were useless. One of the unbelievable methods that Eva was very fond of was called torture in the snow. In this method, if any of the female prisoners did something against her will, Eva would force the entire group to take off their clothes in the bitter cold of winter. In front of the eyes of the other guards, they stood in a field, and then ice water was poured on them with a bucket, and if they moved even a little, it hit them so hard that they died. But finally, when the Allies and the Red Army approached in the year 1945, he escaped along with many other guards, but finally, after Eva tried hard to hide herself, she was arrested and sent to prison for interrogation. Finally, in the year 1946, at the age of 25, he was brutally hanged with 10 other guards on Gorka Hill in front of the people. Finally, it is interesting to know that the name of Eva Paradise is among the 16 guards who were known for brutality during World War II, and their actions had a high impact on the death rate of Jews. Elizabeth Buckler was born in Danzig in 1923. She was from a noble family from Germany who was forced to join the German Girls' Union as a teenager during Hitler's rise to power. A union that was only for women, and the main purpose of its establishment was to indoctrinate girls with the ideas of the Nazi system and brainwash them. In this group, young girls were also taught how to be wives, mothers, and loyal women in the Nazi society, to give birth to children for Hitler and his party as much as they could, loyal and committed children to Hitler's army. In this army of little women, there were different tasks to measure their loyalty to the great dictatorship. For example, A year of continuous work on the agricultural fields, singing and performing intense physical activities such as track and field, as we mentioned. Elizabeth became a member of this union at the age of 13, and this issue caused her father to kick her out of the house. Elizabeth, who was at a tender age, was influenced by the training she received and chose to stay in the army and not return to her family. During her time in the Girls' Union, she was highly regarded for her ability to persecute Jews and became known as the Beautiful Beast, a girl who would spare no effort in carrying out the Nazi army's insane orders. But after a while, with the start of the German army's attack on Poland and the lack of military forces, it was decided that women should also serve in the army. Many of them started working as nurses and assistants in hospitals. But Elizabeth, who had a high desire for violence and harm and saw the Jews as her main enemy, decided to continue her service in the Stotthof camp, so that he can implement whatever he has in mind on the prisoners. During her stay in this forced labor camp, she behaved in such a way that she was named as the most cruel woman in charge, who, despite her young age, no one could look her in the eye. They were sent to the gas chambers to be executed. She did this willingly and caused the death of many prisoners, including innocent Jewish women and children. In fact, it was Elizabeth who decided who would live and who would be killed among the female prisoners. But finally, in the year 1945, with the fall of the Nazi regime, he fled, but was quickly arrested by the Polish police and executed on Gorka Hill, along with other guards of the Stotthof camp at the age of 22. Jenny Wanda Barkmann was born in the year 1922 in Hamburg, Germany, in a poor house. Jenny had a normal life in childhood. Her father was a doctor's assistant and her mother was a housewife. Jenny dreamed of becoming an actress since she was a child, and she was able to enter the modeling industry due to her beautiful and attractive face and achieve high fame. She did not stop her activities even after the start of World War II and continued to work as a beautiful model in German magazines and advertising agencies. But suddenly in the year 2000, in 1944, something changed in Jenin with the propaganda of the SS group to recruit women as officers and guards in the concentration camps. She quickly gave up her profession and signed up for this evil practice. After going through a long interview, she was able to obtain permission to attend the Stotthof camp as a guard and supervisor of the women's section. In those years, about 295 women joined the SS, came to serve in the Stotthof camp. Each of them had different goals. Some joined the Nazi army for money, and some to change their lives. But Jenny, who also had a good reputation in the city, was only able to advance in her work because of finding a high position among the officers. He became a member of this group, but later admitted that the feeling of having power over the fate of others was more enjoyable for him. When Jenny joined the Stotthof camp, the condition of the camp was terrible. With the arrival of a large amount of prisoners from Auschwitz AIDS camp and the excessive increase in the number of prisoners, many problems had arisen, and the need to eliminate them had increased. Prison bosses used many ways to kill Jews. For example, doctors used the drug phenol to kill most of their patients, and guards sometimes buried prisoners alive in mud, or sometimes rented them to famous companies for work. But among all these ways, Genie alone has played an important role in the death of a large number of Jews. After a while, he became known as the Crazy Genie due to his many barbaric deeds. He captured a large number of prisoners, especially women and children. He killed himself. Jenny even shot the guards who tried to help the Jews, or that before sending his victims to the gas chambers or the firing range for execution, he would beat them to death, and he believed that in this case he would have a more painful death. But finally, in the year 1945, when the war ended, she escaped, but she was so hated among the prisoners that with the cooperation of the Jews, her photo was published all over Europe for her arrest, which finally led to the arrest of this crazy woman. In court, Jenny's lawyer tried very hard to show her as a mental patient who has the power to make decisions. No, but with the influx of witnesses to the court and their insistence that Jenny was healthy while committing these crimes, the judge sentenced her to death. Jenny never cried when she heard the sentence, and even when it was executed, she only said that life is very enjoyable. But this animal pleasure ended up Jenny Wanda Barkman at the age of 24 on Gorka Hill with other officers of the Stotthof camp in front of the eyes of 200,000 people. He was executed by the people. Thank you for being with us until this video. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to see more videos. Don't forget to like the video, my dears. I love you so much.